for joining us. We're just going to jump right in. I just want to make sure I have everybody's names and their titles right. And you guys know Addison Cooper. So I'm going to start with like Laura. So Laura Fegly. So you're the Chief Creative Officer at BBDO Minneapolis, Minnesota, right?
Minneapolis, Minnesota. Yep. The Great North.
I love it. I love it. That's really great. And Keith Cartwright. So you are the President CCO of CARTWRIGHT Los Angeles in California. And then Faz, Naseemuddeen. Naseemuddeen. So you're the Chief Executive Officer at Omelet in Los Angeles, California.
Yep.
I love it. This is great. Guys, I think we're just going to kind of start. I kind of try to get a little bit of, not dirt, but kind of like bits of background on you guys. I must say, you all are very close to the vest with your personal lives, which is kind of like, darn. I wanted to get a little bit crazy, but I reached out to Tom Chrisman, Laura, and and I begged him to tell me a story, but he wrote back. He goes, "Laura Fegly is my hero. Watching her run her team at JWT was inspiring. I have no funny stories," which is a lie, I'm sure. He said, "but I respect her so much." So I just wanted to tell you that Tom was.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is awesome. And I also picked up from one of your Instagram feeds, Anya Zander, a picture of you and Anya Zander. I don't know who the other person was. And I sent it to Anya. She goes, "Oh, my youth." I was like, "Girl, you're 30.
I think that was like seeing Wilco at Coney Island.
It was.
Yeah, it makes me feel really old because that sounds amazing right now.
I know, right? I know, it's crazy. You're a big climate, activist, and I really love that about you. So you said something. He says, climate activism is good capitalism. It's making companies more bulletproof for the future and creating a strong economy driven by climate forward brands. And I just love that. Are you still an environmentalist and an activist?
Yeah, however I can. I mean, I think that's on all of us, I think, to kind of keep pushing our brands. I mean, it does help them start figuring out what kind of their next is, and in terms of like their product offerings, but then also, we know that especially with the younger people, like this is the thing they care about the most. So, that should be the thing that our companies care about the most as well.
I love that. I love that. The last thing with you is that you said in an interview many years ago, I'm not really sure when, but you said, be a creepy fangirl or fanboy, talking about brands that are making an impact on climate change. And I love that. Like, I think that should be about, you should be a creepy fangirl, fanboy to anybody that's doing something good, right?
Yeah, there's all these brands that are doing like regenerative farming and they're being real quiet about it and stuff. And we all just need to talk about that and go, I'm kind of a nerd for talking about this, but this is awesome. I think anything we can do to kind of give our corporations a pat on the back for stuff that they're like, oh, maybe it's not that important. It's like, no, this is really important.
I love that. I know. I think this panel, I must say, I'm very honored to have all three of you on. It's quite extraordinary, your careers. And so I'm humbled by this and a bit nervous, actually. So it's kind of crazy, but I'm now, thank you for all of that. I'm going to go to Keith Cartwright. Keith, where do I start with you? Like, you've just done so many amazing things. Saturday Morning, I didn't know it was a nonprofit, which I think is really amazing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. You also did something that was hashtag Keep Building, the Lego brand. It broke gender trends and types in the toy category.
Yeah, Lego came to us and they had a problem. A 12-year-old girl wrote a letter to Fast Company that asked a very unique but poignant question. Why is it that all the boy Legos go on adventures and they're astronauts and they're frontiersmen, but all the girl Legos are nurses or they're in bathing suits? And that got picked up and Fast Company took off with it, and it sent Lego into a tizzy. So when they came to us, they asked us about that problem, but we said, actually, you have a problem with your toy aisle. Why are there gender-specific toy aisles in general? And then more so, why are the toys so different when Legos are about spatial expansion and learning and growth and building? So we built a campaign called Keep Building around the idea that mothers and fathers need to give their children space with these type of toys. There's such a hovering going on right now with parents and always being, in my opinion, overprotective. You think about when we grew up, I would jump on my bike in the summer at 9 a.m. and come back at 6. Now I know it's a different world, but that has translated into the way they learn, the way they interact with each other. And as we know, creativity requires space and quiet and time alone. So we created this spot about a young girl speaking to her mother about allowing her to discover things on her own and fail on her own and learn on her own, using Lego, which is one of my favorite toys, as a device to demonstrate how that works for young kids today. So really exciting. They actually used it as their holiday campaign, and they still run it today. And I think we made that thing a long time ago.
Well,
So
I
I'm really
know,
proud.
right? That's
I'm really
crazy.
proud.
Also, you have a charismatic bulldog, Roger. I hope he's still
Yeah,
alive.
that old son of a bitch. He's in there right now snoring.
And then I think also on your Instagram feed, you had like this picture of a bottle of I don't know, maybe it was scotch, but it said written on it was 2 shot glasses. It said, "I want to run through the halls of my high school with some scotch." Tell me about that. That's crazy.
Oh man, you went deep. It's a joke. I'll just say this. It's a John Mayer joke. If you know his early works, I hope you do or don't.
Yes, absolutely.
And a friend of mine was just mocking me. I'll leave it there.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. Well, just for time's sake, we are going to have to talk about at some other time the Keith-O-Matic. I got to hear about the Keith-O-Matic because that's crazy. But thank you for sharing this. Bravo to you. And now, Daz, you are just incredible. Like San Diego, like ice skating.
Yeah. San Diego by ways of Canada. So
That's so great. Well, I mean, okay, so at least you went to ice skating from Canada. I understand the correlation.
yeah.
So you actually did you teach? So you taught
Yeah, so I came when I moved over to America when I was quite young. One of the skills I brought with me was figure skating. So when in San Diego, what are you going to do but just start coaching? It was a really great way to kind of help myself through college, do all of that stuff, which was amazing, and get to work with great young people. So again, that's been sort of when you talk about kind of the forays into leadership, like that's really where I started. I was working with 3-year-olds with blades attached to their feet. It was, therein lies. If you can help lead a small herd of that, I think, you can handle some of the tough CMO rooms as well.
Is that the metaphor? Is that like the 2-blade metaphor for you?
Yeah, the 2-blade metaphor. I was also a preschool teacher in my very first part of life, so I think that also is one that carries on into my current state of being and understanding how to manage emotions and all of that stuff with very very young kids. A lot of those principles work for all of us, self included.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's bravo. I love that. I'm going to take that one. Also, I heard you speak one time. You said, how do we begin to, I don't know what the question was, but you said, how do we begin to infuse some positivity into the industry, bring back the fun and the energy that we all use? I'm sure we all know this. And, not that we remember the days of private jets and all that kind of thing, but there was fun in the industry, right?
Yeah, I think, if the pandemic has taught us one thing, it's, we are extremely efficient, productive human beings. But the thing that, I think that really energizes so many of us and it energizes great creative work is fun and just enjoying what we do. And the fact that we get to be creative human beings every single day of our lives, I think is such a blessing, and it's something that we can be so proud of, but it's something we need to bring back. And as leaders, like, how do we start to infuse that back into our cultures?
Yeah, I love that because it reminded me of the movie Big. When he got the job in the toy store, and it's kind of like what we do every day, right? Like we have a big, huge toy store, and we have a lot of people that give us like the ability to kind of creatively have a good time and make the world a better place. And so I love that. Thank you for sharing that with me. And now, thank you guys for that little intro. We're going to go right to the questions. So we're going to go to the first question is, what was your first experience of leadership? Did it help you to figure out what kind of leader you wanted to be or what kind of leader you didn't want to be? And I think I'm going to start with Laura first.
All right. Well, I was a hot mess, like my first few leadership roles as a CD. I mean, I think probably a lot of creatives would agree that there's a very different job you learn how to make great creative, but then learning how to teach other people how to make great creative, they're very different jobs. And a lot of us just sort of end up where we keep making a lot of great creative, and then one day all of a sudden we're supposed to be showing other people how to do it. And I don't know that I actually had the training wheels kind of going into that. So that, it probably took me a little bit longer, and I think especially when you're a creative that knows how to do stuff, you'd always jump in and just like, I can do this myself. So I think, that for me is a learning as a leader now is, how do I make sure that I give, as people are progressing along in their careers, give them the training wheels, little bite-sized moments of leadership, bite-sized moments of learning how to take that other role before we jump right into like, okay, now you got a CD role and you're doing something completely different. Hope you're good at, hope you're great at it. So I think for me, and I'm not sure that I learned what kind of leader I wanted to be, but I think I learned sort of, what I wish maybe I had coming up. And it's tricky in our industry because I do feel like if you're really good at making stuff, you keep progressing and you get the titles, but you need that sort of that other skill set and the time to develop that and nurture that.
I love that. I mean, because I do think, we, as we're growing in our careers, we kind of want to emulate people or mentors or people that we really, respect. And the truth is that I don't know who said this, but they just said, why try to be somebody else? Just be who you are. You know what I mean? And the fact that you're willing to like admit that like you're a hot mess, guess what? I think I'm not going to speak for them. I was too. I may still be. I'm not sure, but I love that.
I have moments of hot messiness still, but hopefully with the first couple was like.
Keep it. I love that. Well, the next one's going to go ahead. Keith, what about you?
Well, I totally agree with Laura. I think it's, it is the job to figure out how to inspire others and bring out their vision. Otherwise, you can't scale. If you're just pushing your vision and what you want and who you want to be and what kind of work you want to make onto other people, you're turning them into robots of yourself. And it's never going to produce the type of work that, in my opinion, creates a successful agency, and you're always going to be sort of stuck in a rut of work that looks like yourself. So that's not productive. I would also add there's two types of leadership. And this was one of the biggest lessons I learned. You either lead with love or you lead with fear. Those are the two types of leaders that I believe exist, and they both work, in different ways. You just have to figure out who you are. I obviously don't lead with fear. I would much rather the folks that I work with want to work for me because they're inspired and they don't want to let me down. I think that's in my opinion, a better translation of my personality and how I was raised and how I was most productive in the business. So those are the things that I think about every day and try to replicate with the folks in leadership in my office.
I love it. That's great. Well, I mean, starting your own agency, I mean, that's bravo right there. That's just so fearless. And you have to love yourself enough to like really be able to put yourself out there like that. And bravo to you. You've done so well. And I just wish you the, continued success. Really, it's inspiring. What about you, Zaz?
I think for me and not coming up as a creative, but coming up through strategy, I think the difference was, and I always empathize really deeply with creative because that focus is quite different, right? Because it is about kind of craft and skill and all of that great stuff. And then all of a sudden you're like, and now you have to manage people. So I was fortunate in that, like I'd gotten an MBA. I got an MBA, not because I thought I was going to be a CEO of a company, to be very clear. I got an MBA because I didn't know what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And it seemed like a good, like ambidextrous kind of master's to get. And I'm like, oh, I could do a lot of different kinds of things with this. But having that grounding in kind of the principles of management, while at the time, it probably took me a good 10 years to actually use any of those skills, because again, as a strategist, it was about kind of crafting and making sure that kind of strategically I was building the right skill set. But then when I did get to that point, I could actually lean into some of the things that I had kind of known for a really long time in my career. So it was for me, leadership was sort of a slow burn as you get into, again, bigger projects, managing bigger teams. For me, it was really transitioning into managing managing an agency, and thinking about what that really means today. Because like, what is an agency CEO? Like, what does that mean? And to me, when I took that role, it was actually a really like big moment of introspection, because I was like, how can we redefine what that means? How do I still bring value? Because, you know, as a strategist, you're like writing briefs, you're doing things all the time. And so that inherent need to still bring value to our teams in really like tactile ways has been really important to what I view leadership as, because leadership isn't just about telling people what to do or just being a visionary. It's about being able to help facilitate great work being done, as well as just being an empathetic ear to what is actually happening with across the company that you're managing. So yeah, I think leadership has been a lot of things for me, and I'm really fortunate to be in this position. I think the most important thing is I still don't know what I'm doing. I'm still figuring it out every day. Like, if anyone knew how to do this job and I'd love to read a book that just told me exactly how all this is supposed to go.
Hey, I see you writing a book now. We need that book. But look, you know, I think if you look back to you figuring out you're this, you know, person from Canada, you're like, what do I do? I'm now in San Diego. I mean, it couldn't be the more southern place in the world. And you choose to lead in a way that you are now doing. And it's interesting that you've kind of followed through with that. And, you know, I think I read that you always thought of strategy as a creative entity or part of your kind of life anyway, you know, so it's not such a far stretch that you connected the two with your leadership. So it's really amazing. I love that.
So something that I like to ask, like as a journalist, is how people got into the industry. And, you know, 95% of the time is that people really didn't plan on it, I think. So with that in mind, is there a happy accident that's kind of played a role in kind of getting you where you are today?
Yeah, it was definitely a happy accident. I went to college, I went to Syracuse to study illustration. That's how I got into the school, and loved it and been doing it my whole life. I met a professor who's still my mentor today in the graphic design department. And it was called communication design. And I decided to take a class, which led into that becoming my major. They were very much conceptual in their design thinking, highly conceptual. We wrote our own briefs. So it was an introduction into the world of advertising. It was really seamless for me. When I got my first job in advertising, you know, this tells you how old I am. Advertising was still pretty much image, headline, body copy. So me bringing in sort of a sense of design and really trying to always break that up, you know, sometimes in a way that would frustrate my creative director, created a portfolio for me that got me into Wieden & Kennedy and some of these other places, because they were already on that path. Okay. They were already doing it in a radical way. So that's my story.
But you originally started studying illustration, you said, right?
That's right.
Is that something that you still try to do now when you get the time?
God, I wish I could.
Yeah.
You know, my daughter does, and she's better than I am. So
okay,
I kind of watch her now.
So you have good genes, though, good artistic genes at least.
Yeah,
that's good. And Taz, how about you?
Yeah, I always say my entire career has been a happy accident. So I'm glad that this was a question. Because I fell into advertising in a way that, like, again, I think just the systems that I was raised in, I never really thought about creativity as a potential career path, which is something that I'm now really passionate about, making sure that folks do know that this is a path. Because again, growing up, I saw, you know, it was the doctor, lawyer, engineer paths. And to me, none of those seemed like the right one. So as when I was in my MBA program, I actually ended up just kind of excelling in marketing, and I ended up being a graduate assistant within that department. And one of my professors was actually writing a textbook on integrated marketing communications, which again will date me a little bit about just using that term. But when we had like the textbook of IMC, I was actually going out and talking to different agency leaders, not even knowing really what the industry was about. And I ended up interviewing at what ended up being my first job, which I kind of, they were like, oh, you seem plucky and, liking research, you should go into strategy and planning. And that became a really kind of natural foray. And it was, truthfully, it was during a time where not a lot of my peers graduating from the class actually had jobs. So I was just excited to have a job. I really wasn't thinking about advertising as a full career path. But once I got in, definitely got the taste of kind of what this could be, and seeing how it could marry, some of my kind of love of academia and research and all of that good stuff with creativity, really, really spoke to me. But it was a complete stroke of luck. And again, I think it's important to make sure that generations to come don't have to be lucky and fall into it, but really try to create more strategic pathways in.
As a business leader, you want to attract the best talent, right? And there's a lot of talent kind of lying around unaware that they can even do this. I imagine that's an issue that all three of you have, right? There's a lot of nodding going on.
I think this is why I love this this series that we're doing, because it's really, when we first started talking with Little Black Book, Great Guns, I think your ideas, correct me if I'm wrong, Addison, was like to talk to the CMOs and CEOs, and and at the time it was right beginning of the pandemic, and they were all saying the same thing. All you guys were saying the same thing, and I think it was like there was a playbook sent around, and I thought, I want to hear about their insights and how are they dealing with like living alone. It's a pandemic, or how are they dealing with like having to let go of precious people that they just hired and all this kind of thing. So I think just getting back to what you said, it's really like these great happy accidents. But the truth is that one person may see this who didn't have that career path, or who didn't think about like you can actually be a person who draws and then go into like owning your own company or whatever. So I love that you guys are so honest about this, because it's important that people hear your insights. So thank you.
And then Laura, how about what's your happy accident?
I'm very like nerdy, always kind of wanted to be in advertising. I didn't, I think as everybody's saying, like if the path wasn't very clear, but I was going to find that path. I was an English major. I was the president of my advertising club in college, super nerd. I went to a portfolio center after, but all these things where it kind of had to discover, but I was going to figure it out. I think for me, probably the happiest accident was more of a turning point in my career, where, I was kind of slogging away, trying to make a name for myself. And I really wanted to work at this agency called Cliff Freeman, which was like, that was like the be all end all funny agency at the time. I was working on Mercedes, which is super awesome, but not funny. So I could not get my way into Cliff Freeman. And then at one point they had just won DSW, and they needed somebody who had a passion for shoes. And I'd spent like the first few years of my career kind of hiding, at that time, to be a woman and a woman creative, you didn't want to work on the girl things because you didn't want to get pigeonholed. And all of a sudden, some of the girl stuff that I was super into, and I was super into shoes, all of a sudden came into play. I did some freelance scripts for Cliff. He's like, you're awesome. And I went and worked there. And that was a big kind of turning point in my career. And just a reminder too, that, sometimes the things you love and know in your life, you use them, like revel in them, be yourself, like they'll pay off. And, it also helped me feel justified for some of the shoes I had bought prior to that.
Wow.
That's amazing. Like, I think I said, 95% of people tend to tell me that it was an accident, and that is a number I've made up in my head. But I think there's an element of truth to that. So it's nice when someone says, actually, this is what I always wanted to do, and here I am today.
Advertising's awesome.
Yeah.
I think I saw the show 30 something when I was growing up, and those guys seem really cool, and I wanted to do that. And that's when the great Nike ads are coming out, and I'm like, that's it. That's what I want to do.
The next question, the power of words are more important than ever. What is the most inspiring and what is the most annoying word or words that have stood out to you in the past year or several years? And I'm going to go with Taz.
This is a fun one. In terms of inspiring, I'm going to go back to fun. I think that it's just a simple kind of construct and way of thinking. I think of it less as like an intellectual word that I can be inspired by, but more as a concept that I think us as an industry could use a little bit of energy around. The annoying word is actually, it's funny because it's a word that I actually believe in to my core, which is authenticity. Like the concept of authenticity, I think is so powerful. I think marketers have done an amazing job at bludgeoning it as a word and kind of using it in contexts that aren't always always favorable. It became marketing jargon, which I think is something that really kind of affected me, because again, as a strategist, it's a word that matters. It's a word that ends up in so many briefs. And you know, it's something that I've pushed myself on as well, being like, what does that really mean? Authentic to whom and to what extent, I think is incredibly important, because that word without nuance is such a cop-out. It's a way that brands can just be like, oh, we're being authentic. Like, it's all about authenticity here. I'm like, but what does that mean, and to whom and to what end? And if you don't question it in that way, I think that's where we start getting into world of stereotypes and things that we really don't want to be in. So you know, authenticity, again, I think at its core is not a bad word. I think it's trying to, it does what it needs to do, and I think it's incredibly important to bring authentic points of view to the table. I just think that we bludgeoned it.
Yes, I tend to agree with you, but just like, you know, deconstructing or defining what authenticity is fun. Do you have to define that as well? Like, in a way?
I think you do. I think the nice part about fun is that it's such a highly emotive word that it's really about how it makes you feel. And I think that feeling of joy and fun is just something that we're also hungry for. And it's not just about advertising, it's about how you can bring this to your cultures, to everything, to the way that you make the work, not only the work itself. So I think, you know, the more we can infuse that, the better we'll all be.
I love it. I could not agree with you more. What about you, Laura?
I mean, I think for the words I've kind of hated to hear or was annoyed by this year, I think the phrase "the new normal" kind of frustrates me a lot. And trust me, it comes out of my mouth all the time. But it's, you know, I think what frustrates me about that is that it kind of implies that we're just sort of like slightly revising kind of past rules. And I think if we're going to come out of the last couple of years, I'm hoping we can kind of just rewrite the book altogether. So yeah, new normal is sort of like, we're gonna deviate slightly on what we did before. And I think that's a miss if we come out of the last couple of years like that. If I look back at the last year about kind of like the most inspiring word, like I almost have to go back to like kind of what's happened this year that inspires me. And the word Ukraine just almost as an adjective at this point. You know, I think there's something about just kind of what's happening there that, you know, while horrifying, is also uniting the world. And you can see when there's belief and kind of a united vision, they've been able to persevere in a way that I think is incredibly surprising and just shows that there's no foregone conclusions on everything. I found that really inspiring.
It's so powerful. I mean, again, hearing people's perspectives about a word like Ukraine is very powerful in itself. So thank you for bringing that to my attention and our attention for sure. Keith, what about you?
Collaboration. I think it is incredibly misused.
Yeah.
And I think people have forgotten about the power of their own skill set and how that brings power to the group. And understanding that we absolutely need perspective because of your expertise. But when it becomes everyone has a vote, the work gets watered down and you start to lose the magic that I think got us all into the business. So that one puts a sting in my neck when I hear it and when it's misused. But my favorite word, is why not? I know it's 2 words, sorry. But that is that when I hear that from anyone, it really just opens up the conversation to possibilities. I believe creativity is an act of optimism. And anytime we go in and think about making something from nothing, just think about how optimistic you have to be. We're inventing something new, and everyone has to be optimistic that that thing that you just wrote down on that piece of paper can be something that lives in the world. It's insane. And it is one of the reasons I completely agree with Laura why I love this business. So those are my words. I'm sticking with it.
I love it. No, I love it. Let me ask you a question. So is there a moment in time where collaboration becomes, I'm using the wrong word, dictatorship or leadership or final decision? Like, where is that moment in time?
Well, I mean, structurally, someone has to make a call. And
Right.
that is up to the agency and the group. Someone has to make a call on what we're doing. I think it depends on the decision. I think some people are more, inclined to make a decision than others depending on circumstances. So that's very hypothetical. But I think the best that I've seen, and this includes clients, when you're sitting at a table and you're having a conversation about a piece of work and everyone is chiming in and everyone asks, okay, so what are we going to do? And the decision maker makes that decision based on perspective, based on listening and taking in perspective, but still using their gut, because hell, we don't know,
Right.
to make a call, right? And then everybody holding hands and hoping that it turns out. That's our business.
I love that. That's true collaboration. I mean, that then becomes the ultimate in collaborating, when you all kind of nod your head and go, oh shit, yeah, that's right. Okay, let's jump in, grab hands, and
right.
Love that. Thank you guys. It's all very inspiring. What is something that you do regularly now that you didn't do before the pandemic, and why is that? Let's go with you, Taz.
I just never had time to really cook. I always love baking, but cooking's been really a fun and creative endeavor, if you will. But I think really when I think about it kind of professionally and work-wise, I think this space has been really helpful. And, you know, as we're all grappling with the conversations of returning to office, not returning to office, what it all means, what the implications are, I think the one thing that this has done for some of us who are used to having very back-to-back packed in sorts of days is the ability to schedule in 30 minutes to think. And I can't do it every day, but there is more of an ability, and being in your own space allows you some kind of mental space just to think about things. And I think for me, it's helped me be a better leader in that I can take a half step back from all of the crazy things that are happening every day, and be able to think about whether it's the vision of the company, whether it's the vision with specific clients. But I do think that the pandemic has allowed us to be that little bit more introspective, which I hope can carry on into all the things that we do.
I love that. I mean, I do think that, you know, you're leaders for a reason. But when you think back prior to the pandemic, exactly what you said is that you were making 300 or more decisions a day without thought, really. Like you were reacting in a way and not considering, not saying that you never considered, you had experience in all these other things that like kind of informed your decision. But the fact that you've taken some time now to really reflect and take a step back is really, really an important thing for people to hear. That truly is inspiring, because when you can take a moment and think about what you're going to say and how that's going to affect your client or your, you know, a creative director or a young person that you're mentoring, it's powerful. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. What about you, Keith?
I've been spending an enormous amount of time playing baseball with my son.
That's wonderful. That's amazing.
I never played growing up, really. I was decent, and he's so into it, and it's so different than what we do. It can, like, when I'm done, it's all gone, and it's been great. And you know, and also with my daughter, just watching her create and paint and draw, and just so basically spending time with my two kids.
Well, look, I mean, I don't even know how to, you know, it's not, the word is not a gift that we received out of this. I think we all took the gift. You know, it was hanging around, and we were waiting for us to grab it, and we did. And the fact that, you know, you can spend more time and still run a company and inspire people and make your clients happy, I say effing bravo. Like, you know,
I'm glad you did
that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Why not? Revel in it. What about you, Laura?
Well, I have a 4-year-old, so there's so many things that I wasn't doing before the pandemic that I'm doing with him now, which is awesome. You know, he definitely keeps me super busy. But I think for me, you know, while I love socializing before and obviously love getting together with my friends, I think there's just something really special about the time we get, I don't know, when you guys get together with your friends now, does everybody kind of linger more and everybody's like way more into each other's conversation? It's like we've hit refresh on all of our friendships and just the enjoyment of our time together. Because it does feel like a privilege now. Now it's like, this is special and I want to enjoy this time. And that's been, I think for me, post-pandemic, that's been the thing I've kind of, you know, try to do regularly, is not only see more people, but get into that time and really relish it, instead of like, I gotta go have dinner with a friend tonight.
That's amazing. It's amazing. It's funny. I don't know if Addison will remember this, but when we first started the series a year and a couple of months ago, that was one of the questions that we it wasn't specifically this question, but everyone literally, like, what was it, like, 10 months, 11 into the pandemic, was that people had already started understanding that, if we're going to have this time and we don't know how long that's going to be, I want to be inspired by every moment. I want to be able to, like, know my life better, and I want to know my kids better. And that's what everybody said. It was like, I got to, like, know my friends. I got to know my family, who I didn't know, I didn't have time for. So again, I just think it's great that we continue to inspire and motivate all of the people that are watching this and around us that we work with to continue on this path, professionally, responsibly, but continue on this path of just not taking it too serious and enjoying life. So that's great. Thank you guys for that. The next question is, did you have a mentor? Who were they and what have they taught you? I think I'm going to go with Laura.
Pretty late in my career, I was working at BBH New York, and Emma Cookson, who was the chairman there at the time, she was just like the most amazing, like, awesome human being in the entire world. And she sort of took me under her wing a little bit. I see you making a lot of mistakes that I made, and I want to help you learn your way through them faster than I did. Which I thought was amazing. And that's been kind of the gauntlet that's been thrown to me. I feel like that's all of our duty is, everybody's going to make mistakes and have things that they need to learn. How can we help each of the people that comes behind us maybe spend a little less time doing it and get through those quicker, and help them identify it, and I think just even having somebody as awesome as Emma sort of like behind you and in your corner, like being seen like that was super, super powerful for me. And that's also a reminder for me as I'm managing people, just that sort of the acknowledgement of people, like, I see you, I want to see you do well, and I'm in your corner. That goes a long way.
What about you, Keith?
I've had a lot of creative directors who have been really instrumental in my career. Lee Clow and Chuck McBride and some guys who were really there to kind of help shepherd me. And I was very, very lucky. I really appreciate what they taught me. But as far as a mentor goes, it was, the way I see a mentor is someone who's kind of there with you the whole time, over the course of the various points in your career. And my professor, Ken Hine at Syracuse, I don't think anyone really lit me up the way he did, and sort of showed me, like, there's a different world over here. We were reading Wired magazine when it came out, the first issue. He was so revolutionary in the way he taught us. It was back when Wired magazine used to put the pages. It was like Choose Your Own Adventure. You had to go find the
yeah.
upside down, and you're like, what the fuck is this magazine? But the articles were incredible, and he was talking about the future, and tell you how old I am. He forced us to learn Adobe Suite, and it was just like, and it wasn't just about the tools. It was about how you use them and what they mean. Understanding the masters, and so anyway, long story short, he was there when I was wanting to get out of the business, when it was hard, and he was there when I was successful, and he'd always give me a kick in the ass. So
wow, that's a powerful thing. That's really great. What about you, Daz?
I think it's so interesting because I think I've been really, really fortunate in an abundance of mentors. I think that, early on in my career, because I started my career at a fairly small agency in a small market, it was hard to kind of be inspired by people outside. So I was one of those, the strategists who were on Twitter at the time. And really for me, it was about how I could think about ideas in a new way. It wasn't so much about cloud or whatever else. It was just like, how do I think about things in a new way? Because again, I'm in a small ecosystem here. How do I start getting into that expansive thinking? And I was really fortunate in Mel Exxon and Patricia McDonald, who were both BBH London, running BBH Labs at the time, really kind of picked me up and were like, okay, we're gonna work with you. And they had there was no, and it's such an interesting thing also having virtual mentors, because there isn't like the accountability is different. It wasn't that they were my bosses. It was people who were genuinely interested in how I was thinking about things, how I was trying to solve problems, and really being there for those formative years and helping support kind of what my POV was going to be as a strategist and what I was bringing to the table. So that was so incredibly helpful for me. And truly, I would never have access to people like that without ye old interwebs. So I see the power of that and how it can connect young talent. And I think it's still incredibly important for that reason. But that kind of connection to BBH, again, BBH is getting lots of shouts out today, as they well should, but are really great with, I think from a leadership perspective, there is something kind of ingrained in a lot of these leaders to give back and to be able to kind of seek out new talent and really be able to help shepherd them into the next generation. And I hope that that's something that carries on with all of those of us who have been mentored, to carry that into the generation to come as well.
Yeah, it's lovely. Does Omelet have a mentorship program? Do you guys support that?
We do. So we do internal mentorship programs. We also do external programs, which is either some of the programs working with MAPE, which is an important one, but also working with local high schools as well. And just really thinking about how, again, we can start to create some of these pathways and more structured mentorships as well. So it's not just like asking advice once, but really about how you can do because follow-ups are important. And that was something that Mel and Pats were so incredible at, is making sure that they were doing follow-ups, checking in on me when I wasn't reaching back out to them. And those are things I think that, as a mentor, you have to take quite seriously as you go into any kinds of those, because it's easy to say, I love to mentor people. It's harder to actually be the person who can commit to it.
I love that. Keith, is a question for you. Is there a specific pathway in which anybody who respects you and holds you in high esteem can get to you? Is there any guardrails, or is there a specific way that people can get to you?
I'm not, I'm not at a place, certainly in my career, where I hope I'm not at a place where I have to put up guardrails. That's how you meet new and interesting people. I'm always curious about who's out there, and I feel like it's my job to do that. I feel like it's my job to mentor and also find talent. So you have to be open and accessible, and I spend a lot of time meeting people who may be interested in working for Cartwright, or who may not be, or because you never know where their paths may lead. So I feel like it's beyond, if I'm putting up walls, I'm not doing my job.
Yeah, that's smart. I love that. I mean, I think that one person who, has aspirations to be in the industry, or, hears this and said that, that there's no guardrails, that's great. Because I think a lot of people who are young and just starting out in their careers are, they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. They're afraid to make the first step. And if we tell people, take 10 steps, don't just do one, take 20, push, be bold. What about you, Laura? Is there I assume that you have mentorship within your organization, as well as, are there guardrails, or are there pathways that people can get to you as well?
Yeah, I mean, luckily, even though we're part of, sort of large BBDO network, we're a boutique size agency, which for me as a leader is amazing, because I've got, I've got some CDs here who have been amazing mentors, but it's also, there's a pretty quick path to me. And I'm able to have very one-on-one relationships with all my creatives, which I love, because I can check in on them both at the career level, not just the work level, but kind of sort of how do they feel like they're progressing? What kind of experiences do you need more of? We're able to have those conversations pretty frequently.
I love that. It's great.
I love.
Thank you guys for that. I'm going to go to the bonus questions. I'm going to start with number 2 first. I heard this, I don't know, it's this young kid talking. I think she was like 12 years old, and she was just talking about fitting in, and how she was trying so hard and how that made her feel. And then, so I came up with this question: is what we want to fit in so much, and we forget the very thing that makes us stand out. So to each one of you, what is that one thing that makes you stand out? Taz.
I think for me, it's like it's interesting because I think that by virtue of who I am and how I present in the world, I will always stand out. And I never saw that as a good thing up until the last few years of my life. I think I have actively figured out ways that I could better fit in. And I think once I accepted I am who I am and I present the way I do, I don't, as a strategist, I don't have a British accent. I'm not, I'm not all the things that you would expect a strategist to be. Once I accepted who I really am and just started to really get comfortable with that, I think that's where you really start to see kind of success. And I think, it's the same goes for what my role is. Like our agency CEO is supposed to be a certain way. And I think, I'm in a really fortunate position where I can help define what that is now versus need to fit into the boxes that have existed. So my biggest thing is you just be yourself and let yourself and all of the corners of it. It's the good, bad, and otherwise. And not everyone's going to love every corner of you as long as you're, again, kind-hearted and not doing things in malice. You kind of be who you are, and it's and let folks. That's something that we really work towards at our agency, is make sure people can just be themselves and feel comfortable in their skin, however that shows up. I think is extremely important, particularly to our industry. That's who we are, is part of the kind of what we bring to the table, and it was that's how our points of view are formed.
I think I heard a little snippet of a talk you did, and I think it ended where you had lunch or breakfast with somebody in London, and they told you something about don't be it was a lead, don't be somebody else or something, right? What was that?
Yeah, it's about how we can actually bring it's all about how we can actually enhance all of the parts of yourself that are really, really good. And it's not about just trying to think about what are the things that are, that you're missing. I'm not this kind of thing. I don't have an Oxford education. Those are things that's not the thing I need to fixate on. I need to fixate on the things that I do well and what I do bring to the table. And I think that is a huge piece of advice that I will take with me from the one and only Jim Carroll, again, of BBH. Really just really an incredible kind of mind when it comes to leadership as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's about, you just got to embrace who you are. You're only going to be able to be good at doing that. It's not just finding your special sauce. It's really loving what your special sauce is and making it work for you. I'm kind of a standout a little bit. I'm kind of an oddball in Minneapolis. I worked in New York for a really, really long time. I'm a relapsed Midwesterner, but I'm a recovering New Yorker. So kind of in this market, I'm a lot. Sometimes you hear that a lot,
Not you.
but and I think that's I've always been a pretty big personality. I'm a big talker. I've got big opinions. I'm 5'10". I'm big. I think it's I'm not going to be anything other than that. So I think it's just embracing that. And I think you make such a good point though too. As long as people feel like you've got their best intentions and you're a nice, warm person, you can be, you can be whoever you are, the best. And I think when I go back to when I first started in advertising, there were so many different kinds of personalities. And I think that's the thing I'd love to encourage in all of, people find their inner weirdo, and especially in my creative department, bring that out, let that sing. Cause I think we definitely need more perspectives. We need more people bringing different flavors to the table. So, I encourage that in everybody to kind of let that out and not have to fit into some mold.
Yeah, I love that. Were you always this loud and big and
I think so. I mean,
odd.
I feel like for so long people just want you to be less, but it was always there. So, and maybe it's just I've just gotten more senior and I'm just allowed to be louder now. But I'm rolling with it. I'm taking full advantage.
Power play. I like it. I love it. No, it's great. What about you, Keith?
One of the principles of our agency that I've just obviously taken for myself is just an understanding that unique perspectives bring about unique pieces of work and ideas. And so, as we build our department, we really keep that in mind. We're all from different places. We all have different experiences. And if we aren't bringing that to the product, which is the creative, then you go back into this sort of monolithic way of making work. Everything looking the same, feeling the same. One of the conversations that I remember coming up was, it was creative directors constantly saying, well, I've seen that, and that was last year, and so-and-so did that, and 10 years ago. I was like, well, why is that constantly happening? Well, it was because there wasn't enough inclusion into the business where people had unique experiences to develop unique ideas. And so I encourage that, because it helps the client's work, it helps our bottom line, and it helps the industry all at the same time. And those things are wildly important as we move into, I hope, a better future in this business and in the country.
Very, very inspiring, you guys. I have one more bonus question. How has the pandemic changed the way that you interact with your creatives and production teams? And also, how has it changed the way that you interact with your clients?
I mean, I think with the clients, the fact that we've mastered the technology, you know, it kind of forced us to kind of master all of this and the teams and all that sort of stuff. And I think what's nice about that is it's enabled us to have kind of more casual conversations with our clients on a regular basis, because I can just get on Teams and I can see your face. It's not the old owl camera where you have to see the whole room at the same time and I don't know who's talking. And but then it also means, you know, we can have more casual conversations where it feels more like a partnership. But then also when we go and see each other in person, that also has more weight and more importance to it. So I think it's really helped with sort of how our conversations with clients are happening. I think with creatives, I think the tricky bit for us right now is we've almost gotten so good at utilizing the technology and so efficient at it. And kind of what started falling off the table were more of these real life conversations. Well, and even if the conversations were happening over the computer, I think it was more when we're going through work, like them being, you know, so much stuff's going back and forth on Slack or on email, and we're responding back and forth in real time on that stuff. But what we're not having is 15 minutes where we can sit down and you can hear kind of what my thoughts on are, and I can hear what your perspective is on it. And we can come to, you know, that's our true moment of collaboration. But I think especially when we're trying to kind of come the final mile on work, that's really important. And this sort of efficiency of going back and forth on technology is not our friend.
Is your agency in and out, or not? There's no mandate, or is there a particular?
We're hybrid right now, so we're trying to come in a few days a week, and then we're at home for a couple days a week, and also trying to look to make, you know, how can we make that meaningful too? Like the time here isn't just feel like what I would be doing at home. So really start scheduling, like, you know, meetings when we're all reviewing work together when we're in the office, and then hopefully those days when we're home, we have more of that heads down time, which I think pre-pandemic we were all craving. You know, there's so many meetings now and there's so many things to talk about. It's hard for creatives to get that time to just do focused work. So I'm hoping that sort of the hybrid thing will also lead to a different differentiation in how we kind of how to utilize the week versus every day kind of being the same kind of mixture of meetings and trying to sneak in time between to do the work and get heads down time.
Thank you. What about you, Keith?
It's so true that it has helped us become more efficient, but in some ways, I think it's affecting the product, especially as it pertains to creatives and strategy and how they work together. I think you have to be in the room. I think there's a weird, mysterious magic that we haven't figured out through data and analytics and machine learning on how creativity is made. And it requires us to be together, and the synapses and the weird small things that happen and reading body language, all those things can only happen when I am sitting in front of you and you're sitting in front of me, or we're bored together, or we go off on a tangent, or we go for a walk and get a cup of coffee. And that can't happen in here. So I am so anxious. We're actually moving back in our office next week, and I am so anxious to do that for that reason, because I think the work's going to get better.
Yeah.
You know, anyone who's judged an award show, you kind of feel it. You're like, stuff's okay. There's a couple, that's good, but it doesn't have the weight that it used to, let's say 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago.
Magic happens when we're together. That's when those little moments happen that are serendipity that lead to great creative work.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you should say about the award show, because I've been judging a couple of different award shows, and you can feel it. You know, you really can feel that organic, you know, spontaneity that is called magic in filmmaking. You know, that really like only happens when you're screaming, yelling, kissing, eating ice cream. You know, all those things. So that's interesting. That's really great. I love that. What about you, Taz?
I think very, very similar feelings across the board. I think that, again, like I said, like we've never been so productive. I think that that's been like, if you think about it, it's like, oh yeah, great productivity. But one of the things that I talked to our shop about when we started to kind of go back and just like a day a week, just trying to, kind of feel the edges of things and learn how, because I think it has to be progressive. We have to learn how to connect to each other again. And it doesn't have like as quickly as the light switch turn to help with a global pandemic. The dimmer switch is the only way we can kind of get back in and again train folks to kind of be with one another again and kind of help facilitate some of that magic that I think a lot of us know exists within the walls of all of our agencies. So I think that whilst again you can do so many more meetings now because you're on time for everything, it doesn't mean that the work's getting better. It also doesn't mean that your experience as an employee or as a creative person is getting better, because like so much of the reason why I got into this business and stay in this business is the people, and knowing folks as boxes is not it's not real enough. And I think that that's something that we're craving, and it's something that again you can't force on people, but I think we have to again be patient as leaders because it's going to take time, but it's going to be, I think it will get us into a much better place, because I think we've also learned that we can temper that with the quiet heads down time, and not make that a shameful experience. Or again, I remember as a strategist, you'd have meetings all day and then you'd wait to do the work when you went home, or it's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll start working at 7, which doesn't behoove anybody. That's not a way to live, work, or any of these things. So I think it's been really good. I also think that one of the things that we have done is become more mindful about how we speak and when we speak, given this weird format of boxes on screens. So I hope that some of that is stuff that we carry into our in real life world, because we all, I mean, I'm one of them. We all have people who like talk too much. And so I become much more self-aware, and I'm like, oh, the box has been on me for a minute. I better this is time for, I've said too much. I've had, 10 too many words today. So I think that it's a good self-regulator, and I think it's taught us some good things in the last couple of years, but certainly happy to get back in the real rooms as well.
Knowing what you know, having experienced what you've experienced, whether it's through the pandemic or not, what would you tell your 10-year-old self, Keith?
Don't listen to them.
I love that. I love that. Laura?
You can do it. Be confident.
And what about you, Daz?
Be yourself.
Oh my God, you guys are so inspiring. Thank you so much for a really, really, really wonderful hour. You guys are truly great leaders in this industry. And one of the great things about this is that we are going to please social for, with your friends. And just if one person sees it, who's coming up in the ranks and has a question and gets an answer or is inspired or motivated, it's because of you guys. So thank you for joining us. Time is valuable. We really appreciate it, and go out and inspire somebody else.